want to talk to you about a couple of things. Well, first of all, you are contemplating writing legislation that would make it a felony to block highways. Explain this.
Well, this past session, there was a colleague of mine, Nick Marshall, who filed a piece of legislation that would make it a felony. It would bump it up from where it is currently. So right now, it already is unlawful to block highways to impede traffic, and he would bump it up from a class low misdemeanor to a class E felony. That's something that I've discussed with him. You know, growing up in Ferguson, I had a magnifying glass on what was going on in 2014. Highway 70, which runs through my district, was blocked in 2014 by protesters. And here we see just a couple days ago Highway 64 being blocked. So I am taking a new approach and a new look at it. One of the ways that I might draft this legislation is making it a felony with mandatory community service hours. But I'm also looking at declared disaster zones and increasing increasing the penalties on certain crimes when those certain areas are declared disaster zones.
Obviously, the goal is to get people to not block the highway, but are tougher penalties the way to do it? Because it seems like the protesters don't really care about the penalties.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm hitting the books and hitting the statistics to see what other states have done. That declared disaster zones is something that Texas has done in the wake of Harvey, and there's right now at least seem to have some good feedback from it. But, like you said, you look at murder, you look at drugs, no matter what the penalty is, you're still going to have a certain sect of that group of the criminal class that's still going to go ahead and offend. But here, I think we have to keep our streets safe. It's very unsafe for the protesters late at night when there's no lights out to run in traffic and stop cars going 60, 70 miles an hour. It's not safe for the passengers in those cars, and certainly it's impeding intrastate commerce and actually getting in the way of first responders getting to, whether it's the hospital like we saw the other night at Barnes Jewish Hospital, or whether it's, a case of domestic abuse where a cop needs to get to a crime scene because there's reports of a man beating on his wife.
Yeah. Nick, you also sit next to Bruce Franks Jr. In the legislature, do you not?
Correct, yes.
What is your relationship with him like?
Well, we tend not to agree on much, but that hasn't, degraded our relationship. We've got a great rapport, even though we don't agree on much. He's very passionate about what he believes, and I am as well about what I believe. But we have worked well on certain things, such as juvenile justice reform. He was a great help getting a lot of his colleagues on board with a House bill that I had last year, House Bill 274, which allows for 17-year-olds to be included in the juvenile justice system, which has saved over 40 states tons of money, millions of dollars a year, dropped crime, kept communities safe. But on certain other areas, like, we saw these videos come out, and I understand this is before he was a state legislator, similar to the videos that came out of Trump or, anybody else who's saying something that's not really kosher with today's society. That's a little bit disturbing in the fact that he hasn't come out and disavowed that or said, let's grow from that, let's learn from that. Overall, I have no problems with him. I think he's a great colleague to work with on the other side, even though we really don't agree with much.
Yeah.
But that's part of the system. You got to hear both sides.
You brought up the videos. We played the videos earlier in the week. I haven't heard anybody else in town either play the videos and or talk about this. These videos that surfaced from him as a rapper earlier a few years ago, before he was an elected official. They talk about rape. They talk about violence. They talk about retaliation for anyone who works with the police. Is there any talk down in Jefferson City from your colleagues about censuring him or demanding an apology like they have with some of the others who have said things that are completely inappropriate?
Well, a couple colleagues that I've talked to, because I'm back in the district. I'm in O'Fallon, and I'm working hard. I've got a full-time job as general counsel for several small businesses out here. Talking to my colleagues, there is some, heartburn, you could say, with what was said in the wake of Warren Love's comments about two white guys that were on in a picture vandalizing something. He said, let's hang them with a long rope on a short tree. Well, you're not going to hang them. They're going to still be on the ground. It's a dumb comment.
Right.
And then you've got Maria, the senator, who says, she wishes that the president's dead. Another stupid comment. Now you've got these videos surface that granted, they might be art, they might be rapping, but he made these. These are his lyrics that he made. So he needs to condone it, especially in that part of town. I grew up in Ferguson. I had a guy, literally, my brother's best friend, shot and killed some people at Jamestown Mall. There's a lot of gang behavior where I grew up, and that was exactly what that was. My brother was supposed to be there with him and his little best friend. So our communities need to learn from this. Our communities need statesmen to look up to, and not somebody who's rapping about murdering and raping women. So I would love to see my friend on the other side of the aisle come out and say, look, this is not good behavior. This is not something that I did. This is something that we need to learn from, and this is not the type of behavior that we need to be looking up to. Our youth need to be looking up to. They need to be looking up to statesmen. They need to be looking up to businessmen.
Right, but what I'm shocked by is, especially with all this Harvey Weinstein stuff coming out, right? I mean, and then you mentioned some of the other colleagues who've said things that are completely inappropriate. In this instance, you have a state elected official who's rapping about violence and rape and all these other things, and it doesn't seem like it registered much on the radar screen, which I find very odd, either with your colleagues, other members of the media, and or the general public at large.
Well, I said, since day one when Trump got elected, I don't care, what he says, you can at least, what he's talking about, that that's him. Whereas we've had politicians in the past on both sides that, they're two-faced, and you really don't know what they're saying. And when it comes to the media, that's another thing that he's exposed big time. And we see it here, we see it on the national level, where something happens. If a Republican does it, oh my gosh, we talk about it for months. However, in the cases of a Democrat doing something, they kind of brush it under the rug or don't even bring it up at all. And in this case, it's been several days since these videos have surfaced. It's been years since these videos have even been out there. Nobody's discussed it.
Right.
But I think we do need to have a discussion on it, especially with all the crime that's going crazy in the city of St. Louis under liberal leadership.
Nick Schroer is a state representative in the O'Fallon neighborhood. Nick, thanks for your time. Now get the kids to school.
I will do. Thank you very much.